Thank you for having you again on this program. On platform, we have guests from different backgrounds who also share their experiences or tell us about what they are doing in relation to humanity. I am Yakubu Tadi, and today we're going to be discussing something very important. It's about a health issue. And you were wondering, it's a clergy that we're talking about this, and what has the clergy got to do with health? In some years back, about 35 years or so, one issue that got the global attention and action was taken was about the HIV AIDS. And today, 35 years down the line, what is the story of that? Some people said it's not a disease, it's whatever they're calling it, but the conversation about it is dwindling. People are not talking about it. Has it gone away? Is it still there? Those are issues we'll be discussing. I have a guest here who will introduce himself. So, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me. I am Reverend Moses Thliza, working with the Christian Faithful Fight AIDS in Nigeria.
Well, people would wonder what is your relationship, a Reverend and AIDS. Can you throw more light on how you came into this?
Yeah, I am professionally trained as a health worker, community health worker, and I specialize in primary health care. Then, by the grace of God, I also went to seminary and got training. I was ordained a minister. So I see myself as a privileged person to have the health background as a profession and also to be a clergy so that they can work in both winning souls and healing the body to improve human condition.
Exactly. That was what Jesus Christ did. He was also winning souls and healing. And winning the souls and also healing the souls. The souls need healing. And at what point did you get involved with health?
Well, that was my first beginning. I came to Jos and trained in 1971-72 in what was called Sudan Interior Mission Medical Auxiliaries Training School at Jamkwan or Evangel Hospital, which is today Biham University Teaching Hospital. And since then, I have been a professional health worker. I went places in training, including Lagos, Ibadan, and the United Kingdom, Liverpool, and Leeds. And then in 1984, I went to Emmanuel College of Theology to train, and then I got ordained in 1993 as a reverend or pastor by my church, EYN Church, Church of the Brethren in Nigeria. And therefore, all my life I have been a health worker.
So when you said you came to Jos, it clearly says you are not from Jos or from Plateau State.
No.
Where did you come from?
I come from Adamawa State,
Okay.
Precisely from Mizu in Madagali local government area of Adamawa State. But I have been in Jos. After my 2-year training, I went back home and worked with my church. Then I was employed by the Christian Health Association of Nigeria. So I came to Jos in January 1984. Since then, I have been in Jos.
Oh, that's wonderful. So it's home now.
Yes, indeed.
Looking at the time, 1988, AIDS had been there, but the global attention and affirmative action, if I may use that word, was taken to begin to contain this. At that time, looking at the journey to this time, what are the changes? What are the things that have happened within this period, 35 years?
Well, actually, AIDS was discovered in 1981 in the United States. Our first case in Nigeria came in 1986. So by 1988, when the World AIDS Day was declared by the World Health Organization and the United Nations, action had really been taken, and the world was shaken because there was no treatment. Anybody who got contracted HIV at that time saw it as a death sentence. But since then, a lot of advances have taken place. Um, Today, there is treatment for HIV and AIDS. There is no cure, but there is treatment that people who have HIV do not progress to AIDS easily anymore when they start treatment on time. And since the beginning of this pandemic, up to 85 million people, 85.6, they put it ranging from 63 to 113 million, have contracted this disease. About 45 million have died, or 40 million have died from the disease since its inception. Now, today, if somebody gets HIV, there is retroviral drugs that are administered on people. In those days, they have to wait until you are very sick, what we call your CD4 count runs down, that your immunity is weakened, you can't fight any infection anymore before you get on the drug, which was too expensive. But now the drugs are free and they are available on detection of HIV in the blood. A person starts on it. And therefore, even people living with HIV today cannot be recognized because they live their normal life. The medicines help them to live normal lives.
Well, I've looked at some data and statistics. Is it related with poverty? The first five, six, 7 to 10 are in Africa. Lesotho are number one, and the rest of them. Is it related to diseases or the poverty of the people?
Well, one of it, of course, is poverty, but also there is lifestyle, and education also matters. Uh, Most people affected in Africa is through heterosexual intercourse, man and woman. In other countries, it is among gay people, men having sex with men. Yet in other countries, it is drug users, injectable drug users. So, actually, as you say, it has to do with poverty and level of education. But even when you come to Nigeria, you wonder whether education really
Counts.
it counts, because the highest prevalence of 3.1% is in the South, while the lowest of 0.6% is in the Northwest.
Jigawa,
Well, it is this is zonal. I'm
yes.
looking at the zones,
Okay.
geopolitical zone.
Okay.
So the South has the highest.
But the North Central is second.
Yeah, the North Central is second, followed by the Southeast, and then the Northeast and Northwest and Southwest have about the same.
Yeah, let me bring back. I'm happy because you are a clergy,
Yes.
and both Christianity and in Islam, the turnover and the high number of um, religious houses and institutions springing in. If you talk about education, what is the role of religion in this aspect? Is it that the falcon cannot hear the falconer? Because with the number, we would expect that the spirituality of the people would also help in mitigating this. But the numbers are surprisingly springing up.
Well, actually the social and cultural factors probably have more influence on transmission of AIDS, of HIV, than religion. Now, for example, you have many uh, commercial sex workers, or they call them, yeah, so commercial sex workers. which we call prostitutes or harlots, and the world doesn't want to hear that anymore. They are commercial sex workers. Now, you can preach to them. If they are hungry, they don't have food, they don't have money, they go out and they contract HIV.
So it's back to the poverty and unemployment.
Poverty and unemployment. Long distance drivers or what we call special population, like the armed forces, the uniformed people, we call them, that stay away from their families for a long time. These are people who are uh, easily exposed to HIV. Of course, teaching on religion helps. That is why I decided to get involved with HIV and AIDS and set up a Christian Faithful Fight AIDS, because in the beginning, the ministers, the clergy, the church didn't want to talk about it because they considered it sin. It is only the perverse people that get it. But of course, it's not true, because a child in the mother's womb, if the mother is infected, can get it during the birth process. And there are many innocent people that go to get blood transfusion and contract HIV. And therefore, it is better to educate people about the danger. But of course, every promiscuity, adultery, and fornication are sinful.
But what is the level of research in these areas? Because there are school of thoughts that have said, no, it's not only through promiscuity that it happens. You've given one example, like an unborn child who has no hand in what happened, and then perhaps in the process of conception is infected. And now you also have people who also maybe go to shave, go to have a haircut or cut their nails, and some of these activities, or women who go to for manicure and pedicure and all of these things. Other than that, or using public facilities, which are lacking in Nigeria, conveniences are hardly available, and the few that are available, people just go in and all of this without any proper disinfection.
Well, researches have been done. There is sufficient information about how HIV is transmitted. Now, you can't get it by sitting on a toilet seat. It has to be blood or body fluid that enters that person's body. The greatest number of transmission, especially, across the world, is through sexual activities. Whether it is heterosexual, lesbians, gay, or whatever, that is the major route of transmission. The second one is drug users, injectable drug users, especially in Eastern Europe, Russia, and the rest of them. That is the major mode of transmission. But then, of course, in our own environment, where you don't have sufficient facility, people can get it through blood transfusion if the blood is not screened. A positive person's blood transfused to a negative person could get it. As I said, through childbirth, unborn child can get it through the birth process, or immediately after can get it. Now, those have reduced greatly because of the knowledge now that we apply. When people take the medication, what we call ART, antiretrovirus therapy, once the person gets on that, you suppress the viral level, because it is the multiplication of the viruses. They have to be in their billions or millions in the blood before they can infect somebody. So people who are on retroviral drugs hardly can transmit HIV anymore. And therefore, pregnant women also are put on this so that their babies, unborn babies, do not get it. So there is a lot of way to protect it. So it is misconception for the church or for any religion to think that it is only sinners that get it. It is only through sex.
Okay, let's come back to 1st December will be the World AIDS Day,
Yeah.
globally commemorated, and this day is for this day is World AIDS Day 35. Remember and commit. And commit to what? What do we need to remember? Have people forgotten, or are people no longer committed? Because it's a less talking point now than before. Daily, you would have been hearing it, but now is that perhaps why they're saying remember and commit?
Yeah, of course, you know that human beings, when things are new, everybody talk about it. But if you can imagine that in the 80s and 90s, HIV/AIDS was the dominant agenda. But if you look back at 2020 or 2020, with the emergence of COVID-19, AIDS was pushed back because COVID-19 did not choose the poor people. In fact, it was in the upper class. It didn't devastate Africa as it did the rich countries that had everything. So the reason why the theme is chosen this year, remember and commit, is that we still have people, millions of people living with HIV and AIDS, and people are still being contracted. I mean, HIV is still being contracted every day. And therefore, people need to remember. And when you remember, we commit ourselves to thinking about those that we have lost, the 40 million that have died or more, the over 40 million that died. We remember them. And we also remember those that are still living with HIV today. There is stigma, there is discrimination. We need to remember and we commit ourselves. There is a target that by 2025, we should have stopped the transmission of HIV. That is what we call 95, 95, 95. That 95% of people who have HIV know their status. That means people must be testing to know. And 95% of those people who know their HIV status are on the retrovirus therapy so that they are taking treatment. And 95 of those taking treatment should have suppressed their viruses that you cannot find them in the blood anymore, that they cannot infect anybody. So that is the target for 2025. And by 2030, AIDS will cease to be a public health concern. That is why when you remember from 1988, when it was declared, actually I celebrated my first World AIDS Day in Liverpool. I was in the UK. And down the line, with all the advances that people can now live with HIV, we need to commit ourselves now to say, let us finish it. That is why the theme is chosen.
What's the level of stigmatization? It used to be the people. Some people used to die because of trauma, because of the attitude of people towards them and stigmatization. Is it still at that level?
No. The stigma is still there, but it is much, much, much less. Now, I handled a lot of cases, but one particular one that in this plateau state, that the parents looked at and said, look, this girl is stubborn. When we talk to her, she doesn't listen, she doesn't obey. And now she has contracted this disease. She's taking all our money. We have other children to look after, so they dumped her. I had to literally, personally carry this lady, and we took her for treatment. When she got better, unfortunately, she went back to the practice until she died. That was the kind of stigma that they could be just locked in a room, somebody just dropped food to them. But today, that is no more. There are laws prohibiting stigma and discrimination. And so people living with HIV and AIDS, in those days, they were so sick, lean, and wasted, very ugly looking. But today you can't, even if I were positive and I am taking HIV therapy, you wouldn't know.
Yes, I do remember that.
So
There's an
so
association now.
so
They come out
stigma,
and speak
yeah,
and also talk about
yes.
their situation.
And they also now say they are positive
Yes.
and they can fight back. But in those days, they had no power. So
Okay.
stigma is still there, but
Okay, let us look at the age brackets. Which age bracket has the highest prevalence rate?
the highest prevalence rate is the ages of 20 to 24. But the wider one is 15 to 49. This is the greatest number, 15 to 49. And this is what we call the reproductive age. And within this age group, the transmission is more among women. In Nigeria, uh, a girl that is 15 to 45 is more than two times likely to catch HIV than men. So they have about 9.1.9%.
But why is that so?
Well, there are many factors. Uh, women normally you deposit the semen and the sperm into the woman. She harbors it. And the man, unless he has infection or sore on his penis, he will not easily get it. And a woman may have bruises inside. They have many reasons that even their menstrual flow opens the blood vessels, and therefore they get it more. And of course, also, uh, young women are more prone to fall to men that have money than young men. Young men may struggle to go and get what they want, but ladies are more enticed. And I think the biological makeup of the ladies and also the social and economic factors in our society.
Okay, so let's come back to Plateau. I'm sure most of your work it's beyond Plateau, but you are here in Plateau. Your office is in Plateau. Can you give us an eye view of the situation? Have we? I was looking at some data. The data is changing. The data has changed depending on the sources you're looking at. Plateau, by what I have gone through, was number 15 in Nigeria, 1.6. And we also had, you talk about spatial population. We have also had conflict in Plateau State from about 2001. We have had predominantly presence of security forces whose families are not here. How would you assess? What is your assessment of the Plateau situation, and what can be done? Is it good, or is there still a red flag?
Well, Plateau State at the beginning was the leading state in Nigeria. It was the pace setter. And when PLACA was formed, Plateau State Agency for the Control of AIDS, under late Dr. John Junu of blessed memory. Nigeria had a committee on control of AIDS. Plateau State established agency. And the federal government copied that from Plateau. The World Bank grant to the states was used, and so many of us NGOs worked in Plateau. Our own NGO worked in Shandam, Pampan, and Lantan South. Up till this time that we are talking, we still have people in Lantan South and Shandam that we're still talking from the work we did with them. Now, a lot of political changes took place. A lot of leadership changes took place, and the activities did not continue the way it was, and less NGOs are able to access the resources or grants to operate, to continue the aggressive work that was done. So we need the government to rethink, recommit itself to release money to run the campaigns. We did very well to controlling Ebola. We did very well controlling COVID-19. And now we need to do double up to finish AIDS.
Okay. It can't be finished, but to mitigate it.
Well,
the human behavior and action.
Yeah, the global target by 2030 that it will cease to be a public health concern.
Okay.
That means it is under control.
Okay.
It is not spreading like wildfire anymore.
All right. On that hopeful note, we will end this one. But remember, 1st December is World AIDS Day 35. That is 35 years when affirmative action was taken. That is 1988. And that is remember and commit. Commit to what? Commit to also staying safe and also taking care of people, taking care of yourself. I've had the pleasure of having Reverend Thliza, who is he has given us an insight into what they have been doing and how we can also help to protect our society. Thank you once more for being on the program.
It is my pleasure and honor. I hope all the Nigerians and those remembering World AIDS Day will take action to stop the spread and to support those who are infected. God bless you.
Yeah, that's the much we can take. And next week we'll be here with another interesting guest, Media Temple Global, and also our YouTube page handle. Goodbye and God bless.